Hello, I'm Judy Stiles. Thank you for joining us this week on Newsmakers. Well, it's the time of year when we hear about reaching out to help others in the community through the United Way annual campaign. And joining me today, Duane Dreiling from the local United Way. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And we're recording this program shortly after you've had your kickoff celebration or announcements of what's happening this year.
That's right. Just last Thursday on September 21st, we did our annual United Way 2017 kickoff. We had two events. We had a luncheon sponsored by Kansas Crossing Casino. They hosted us at the new casino up in Pittsburgh, and we had that campaign and then kickoff, and then we all came running back over to Joplin, and in fitting with our theme, we hosted this year's campaign kickoff in Joplin at a CrossFit gym in downtown. So it really kind of fit with our health pillar and encouraging people to be active and living a healthy lifestyle. So it was a nice event. At each one of those events, we did announce our campaign goal. Right. The campaign goal for this year for the United Way campaign is $1.1 million. Since we are United Way of Southwest Missouri and Southeast Kansas, we also like to be respectful of the donors and honor their intent. And so we also do set a separate goal just for Southeast Kansas. And Southeast Kansas goal for this year is $200,000. So of that 1.1 million, 200,000 will come from the Kansas side. You know, when the organizations merged about 6 years ago, one of the things that we talked about at the very beginning, and of course this was before I was there, but the board was very strategic in their decision. But from the very beginning, they said money raised in Missouri will stay in Missouri, money raised in Kansas stays in Kansas. That way the donors know that their money is going to fund programs that are in their communities. So money raised in Southeast Kansas goes to support programs in Crawford and Cherokee County. Money raised in Missouri goes to fund those programs and services in Jasper and Newton County.
And that was my question. People wondering, what is your service area? It's basically those four counties.
Those four counties. Right. And this year is going to be, this is the first year, kind of a unique situation. The United Way of Labette County out of Parsons decided that it was a small volunteer-led United Way, and I think some people were retiring, and so they decided to discontinue their United Way there. So we have now wrapped Labette County into our service area, and with that, there's a couple of agencies. The majority of the agencies that were funded by Labette County United Way were the same ones that we were already funding.
They were in your program already.
They were based in Pittsburgh, or like Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts cover multiple counties.
That whole region, right.
And so they were already, but we did bring on the Labette Assistance Center and Labette Meals on Wheels as well. So two new agencies to our group of agencies that we fund. So we now fund 38 agencies, but more importantly, and we can talk about it a little bit later, but more importantly, we fund 48 programs within those agencies, and that's where we really talk about the impact that we're having on people's lives.
So it goes beyond just the number of organizations, it's what those organizations are doing with their programs.
That's exactly right. It's a little bit of shift in United Way in our thinking, so anyway.
Well, I know at the kickoffs you had a video that kind of sets the tone, and I think for our audience, if they weren't there, let them look at the video, and that'll kind of set the tone. Let us talk about this year's theme, what we're trying to accomplish, and so forth. So
sounds great.
If we can, let's take a look at the video for
problems. The ones most people don't like to talk about here in Southwest Missouri and Southeast Kansas. The ones nobody talks about at cocktail parties. The ones that seem impossible to solve. We go looking for them, and we fight. With your help, we find and invest every dollar we can to address them. But when we stand united, we are more than fundraisers. We are the hand raisers, the game changers. The stop talking, start doing, band together and take on the impossible taskmasters, no matter the obstacles or odds. And we make a difference. United, we fight for young students who struggle to read. United, we stand up for youth with no support, no diploma, and no hope. United, we confront poverty and homelessness in our community. We surround our community's most critical problems. We fight for Sakil. We fight for Nathan. We fight for Kevin and Jimena. We fight for those who need a voice and those whose names we do not know. United Way fights for the health, education, and financial stability of every person in every community. Because change doesn't happen alone. We fight together because there is strength in numbers. We fight with hope because we know we have the power to make a difference. We fight with our hearts because we care. We fight with purpose to change lives right here in our community. We can ignite that fight in ourselves to extend a hand to someone else, helping those who are the hardest to help, the ones with the least amount of hope. Life-changing help comes from people just like you. Help may come from Betty, a nurse who at age 86 still dedicates her life volunteering in a clinic to build a healthier community, or volunteers who coach and encourage young children with big obstacles to move, play, and experience joy. Or your local UPS driver who is trained while performing their job-related duties to note and identify those who are potentially at risk for human trafficking taking place in our community. When we fight united, kids learn, people get on their feet, teens turn a corner, families thrive, and our communities flourish. Every person deserves a future that isn't dictated by their past. But change doesn't happen alone. We have one life. To live better, we must live united.
So we can see through the video the theme, the fight, live united. Tell me a little bit about choosing the theme for this year's program.
The theme for this year is Unite to Fight. And, this is kind of a little bit of a different direction that we're taking through United Way. It's really something that United Way Worldwide has encouraged us to kind of take a look at. The last several years we've had a lot of fun with our campaign. Last year was a music theme, year before was baseball. And that's great. We still want to have fun with our campaign. But we really wanted to take the direction where we bring to light those issues that are critical issues that are facing our community. And so it's a little bit different direction that we're taking, really bringing to light those issues and asking the community to help us solve those issues. That should be the purpose of United Way. Is we are the people, the organization that brings people together, so that we're not working in silos and we're starting to work together and we're looking at collaborations and how do we collaborate to make sure that we're improving the lives of some of our most vulnerable citizens. A lot of times when people are, when you think of United Way, you think of those agencies that address people in crisis.
Right. Urgent need.
Exactly, that urgent need. They can't pay their rent, or they can't, they need to go to the food pantry to get food. That we do that, but we also looked at our work through these agencies, because if that's one issue, there's probably lots of other issues surrounding that family or that individual. And how do we then rally together as organizations and start to talk about, okay, I've got this client that's needing help here, but the underlying problem is really this over here. So how can we partner with this other agency to maybe start to solve that problem so they don't have to come back in that crisis situation? So Unite to Fight, part of the video that I really like is that the part of the video where it says, we fight together, because that's what United Way is. It's coming together as a community and fighting for the improvement of people's lives. We fight with hope, because as communities we have hope that we can make a better tomorrow. We fight with our hearts. We're a very compassionate community. Southwest Missouri and Southeast Kansas are. But the last one is the one, we fight with purpose. And I think that's the thing with United Way, is that fighting with purpose. We don't raise this $1.1 million and then just fund agencies for the sake of funding agencies. We fund agencies with a purpose to make sure that we're addressing those critical issues facing our community.
Well, I know in looking at the video, people probably recognize a lot of local sites and local organizations and so forth, and that really ties into the local aspect. You talked about United Way. There's a national United Way, but you're able to tailor and to deal specifically with the Missouri side and the Kansas side, what the needs are in this community.
And that's the beauty of United Way. We are part of that national network. This was kind of some direction that we got, although it's not mandatory, but it's nice to have that affiliate organization, to where you can capitalize on the strengths that they bring. But the beauty of it is, but we get to localize it and decide what makes sense for our communities, whether it be Southwest Missouri or Southeast Kansas. You know, that's the beauty of it, is we get to do what makes sense here. The issues facing our region may be completely different than issues facing Southern California. They're still part of the system. They can do what makes sense in their communities, and we get to do what makes sense in our communities. So it's a great partnership.
Tie those together. Now, we've talked about the different program aspects of doing it. I think you have a PowerPoint that talks about the program part. You have 48 programs. You mentioned 38 agencies. So you're not just saying, organization ABC, here's some money, do what you need to. You do a whole assessment trying to decide, you know, what are they doing to meet these needs that
That's right. After we get done with campaign, we'll go through a process. We call it the community investment process. And I always want to make sure that people know this is a volunteer-driven, it's community-based volunteers that go out and do those sites. This is in no way staff-driven. This is the community volunteers. So if somebody working at Empire District says, I'd like to get involved, there's all kinds of different ways that you can get involved. Yeah, you can get involved with those agencies. You can also be on our community investment panels. And those community investment panels, starting in January, will go out and do a site visit at the agency. They'll review their budgets, their 990s, go through the program. They look at, we do ask the agencies to submit with their application a logic model and their outcomes. You know, what if you get this amount of money that you're requesting, what is the impact on the community? So you want to see
that they have goals.
And see exactly what, and in the video you heard, investing in our future. You really are investing. We're investing in programs that are making a difference every day in people's lives. And so we go through that process. We do those community investment panels. Those panels then make recommendations to the board of directors, and then the board of directors has the final approval on the funding amounts for each one of those 48 programs.
Now, the board is made of volunteers as well.
The board is volunteers, absolutely. We have an 18-member board of directors, which is a lot of board of directors. But again, when you have an organization that covers both sides of the state line, so that we have fair representation from our Southeast Kansas communities. We've got, I believe, 5 representatives from Southeast Kansas, and then the balance of that board comes from the Joplin area, Jasper and Newton County. And they are absolutely volunteer board members.
So all the way to the final decision-making point, it's volunteers, people in the community involved in those decisions.
That's right.
Okay. Well, let's take a look at your PowerPoint.
Sure.
I know that it helps us visualize. We could talk numbers and figures and organizations, but to help people see, of course, we're starting off here with basic funding.
Yeah, and I like to make sure that the community knows that, you know, when you give to United Way, you go, well, how is that money being spent? And so we break it down into our 3 pillar areas, and again, that's how we ask the agencies to apply for funding. Based in one of those 3 areas of education, health, and financial stability. So 9% of our funding, this is from 2016, 9% of our funding went to education, 34% of our funding went to health, and as you would expect in our community, and I think this is similar on both Southwest Missouri and Southeast Kansas, we know that poverty and homelessness and work readiness is one of those critical issues. So 57% of our funding went to the financial stability pillar. So
then you look at each area to see what programs fall in those areas.
Absolutely.
So
if we go to the next slide, then you will see in the education pillar, we then break down, we have the agency listed, but as I said earlier, more importantly, it's the bullets underneath there so you can see how the programs that we fund within those agencies. And for example, the Boys and Girls Club. It's not about giving money to the Boys and Girls Club. It's about their summer program where they work with the children to limit that knowledge loss going from, let's say a child's going from 5th grade to 6th grade. They work with the Joplin Schools curriculum, making sure that, we get to go and we get to play kickball and go on fun tours, but we also maintain that education component so that when they enter 6th grade, the first month isn't all about review from what they learned.
Forgot everything over the summer type
Forgot
of thing.
everything, you know, and the same with the after-school program. It's also our work with agencies such as, and I know you're involved with Joplin, Naylor Reed, it's that literacy, and, you know, making sure it's lifelong learning. United Way should be encouraging lifelong learning, and so our work with those agencies. So if you look at the bottom of that slide, we talked about 7% of our funding, but you look at the number of people served down at the bottom, 4,289 people were impacted by one of these programs funded in our education pillar.
And that's information provided by the agencies. They will say how many children they have in this program, how many people participating in those different things.
And those are, well, you know, these numbers are going to sound rather large, but when you're figuring the 4-county area, those are unduplicated numbers. And so we do ask the agencies to submit those to us so that we can come back to you, the donor, and say specifically because of that $50, $100, $500 that you gave to United Way, here's the impact that we were having.
These
on
are the number of
community.
people who helped through this area.
Yeah.
So we have education.
So then if we go on to the health pillar and look at that again, lots of programs in the health pillar. But in this one, you know, I might just point out that you can pick any one of these, but they all do great work. But our work through the community clinic of Joplin and the various programs that we fund there, specifically the dental program. That's one of those things, the adult dental program. And a lot of employers really like that program because if they have an employee that doesn't have the dental insurance, they're going to lose work just because they have a toothache. Now they don't do comprehensive dental work, but they'll do simple extractions. That way that employee can get back to work and not miss work. So, you know, again, it's some of that. Again, through a lot of people think of United Way and they think of it's those urgent needs, but we also like to promote through like the Joplin and Pittsburgh Family Wise. We like to promote that proactive, living a healthy lifestyle. And so we offer through those two agencies, we'll offer scholarship programs where if people can't afford that membership to the Y, through our funding, they're able to give scholarships. So we're encouraging people that maybe can't afford to still live that active, healthy lifestyle. So our work at United Way, yes, we do that immediate response, but let's look at ways that we can improve our community. So in this pillar, again, you saw the funding for that one, but now because of the funding, we have impacted the lives of 23,252 people.
Okay, then we move on to the financial aspect, which if I recall was probably the largest number.
That 57% of our funding, if you remember, went to financial stability. And this pillar has kind of went through different names. It was called the income pillar, which I thought was really kind of misrepresentative what we were trying to. We weren't trying to improve people's income. It's how do we help those people with financial stability and providing a stable environment for themselves and their family. So in this pillar, it's again our work with like cross lines, regional health and welfare. It's that rent and utility assistance, that food bank program. And it's the same with Wesley House in Pittsburgh. Those are two of our largest ones in this financial stability. Again, through both of those organizations, and the greatest part about these, not just those, but also Salvation Army and Red Cross and all the other agencies, Catholic Charities, it's not a handout, it's a hand up. And when I say that, you know, if somebody comes into any one of those organizations and says, I need help because I can't pay my utility bill this month, and they need help. Well, they're going to provide that help, but then they surround that individual or that family with case management, and they start to go, okay, what's the underlying issue that's keeping you from being able to pay your rent? Is it a one-time deal where maybe a medical expense kind of threw a wrench in your regular budget
this month, right?
But if it's an ongoing issue, maybe it's education. Maybe can we get you enrolled in at least a GED program or an associate's program so that we can start to get you to the point that you have sustainable income. In some instances, it's substance abuse. Maybe you can get a job, but you can't keep a job because of substance abuse. Okay, let's get you referred to the appropriate program so that you are better able to go ahead and meet those needs.
So you have a lot of your agencies collaborating then? I mean, if somebody walks into one of these agencies and says, I have a need for the utility bill or food, then they'll call somebody in maybe one of the other pillars or whatever.
Exactly. And as we talked, it's that collaboration. It's coming together for the community, you know, how those agencies work together to solve some of those issues facing the families. So we pulled it down, but in that pillar, we had 33,347 people that were impacted by that pillar. So again, a large number. And then the last thing that in that presentation that we have, so you add all those numbers up, 60,000, there it is, 60,888 people in Southwest Missouri and Southeast Kansas were touched by one of these 48 programs of the United Way. And that's an amazing stat. You know, when you really start to think about that, that's 1 in 5 people living in Jasper, Newton, Crawford, and Cherokee County have been touched by one of these United Way agencies. And so that's why, as we talk about our campaign theme, Unite to Fight, we're coming together as communities to fight for improving people's community or people's lives. And one of the things that through United Way Worldwide, and I think I've gotten it ingrained into my mind now so that I can probably recite it in my sleep, but United Way fights for the education, health, and financial stability of every person in every one of our communities.
So this is across the board, no matter where you're at.
That's the United Way goal. That's the United Way a worldwide goal, but it's more specifically, when we think about it, it's not just we're fighting for the education, health, and financial stability of people in Joplin, in Pittsburgh, in Columbus, and all those different communities across Southwest Missouri and Southeast Kansas.
With 1 in 5, you look at the numbers, people may not realize that a person down the street might be getting services. And
that's right.
You're talking about in smaller communities, neighbors helping neighbors in many cases.
Exactly. And that's what we talk about is you never know. You never know when you're going to maybe need the help of one of these agencies, or somebody in your family is going to need help of one of these agencies. Of course, the standard is a lot of people have children in Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, or they're going to the Boys and Girls Club. But, one circumstance such as a house fire, small or large house fire, maybe now you're going to need the assistance of Red Cross.
Red Cross comes in for relief.
They come in and they'll help you. They'll make sure, and you don't think about this, oh, I've got insurance, I can, I've got homeowner's insurance, that's going to take care. Well, all your paperwork was in the house that you can't go back into, or that was destroyed.
And you need a place that night.
And you need a place that night, and some clothes, and maybe some toiletries. And so they're able to come out and provide that immediate assistance to get you, bridging the gap from when you go from the immediate disaster to when your insurance can kick in. And so, you never know when somebody in your family may need one of these agencies. And we can talk about and we don't ever want to see it, but the CP Center is there if a child is born with some disabilities, maybe some learning delays and different things. They're an awesome agency to be able to provide those services to get that child to the point that if it's not long-term care, even that care that gets them ready for school and different things that they're going to need to do in their lives.
So help preparing them for the future. Now, looking at your list, I know when you had it up there that I noticed that you don't see any really, duplication of services, that there's a specific thing done by this organization and another one over here, even though they may have similar interests, they're doing different programs.
That's exactly, as I said earlier, we fight with purpose, and we look at that, and we like to make sure that we are not duplicating services. Now, you have some, like we'll fund the Salvation Army in Joplin and the Salvation Army in
different communities,
in Pittsburgh, they're going to be doing the same thing. But we really try to make sure that we let the Salvation Army focus on feeding program. We let the Cross Lines work at the emergency assistance, the rent and utilities, the food bank. And so we really try to make sure that we're assuring the donor that when we invest, and that, I always tell people United Way is much like a mutual fund or a general contractor using the mutual fund. You know, I go to a financial planner for retirement because I don't have time to research all the stocks and mutual funds and all the different things out there, and so I invest in this mutual fund and let the professionals.
They're the ones who are trained on how to do it. Right?
And same with United Way. When you invest in United Way, you then are investing in an organization that doesn't just know about homelessness or domestic violence or child abuse and neglect. We know the whole community, and so we can take those funds and look at the greatest needs, again, through those community investment panels. We're going to identify greatest needs in the community, and so we're going to, with purpose, fund those agencies where we see the most critical issues facing our community. I'd often tell people, you know, somebody says, well, how do you know that? What's critical issues? And we haven't gone through a community needs assessment process for a while, and I think that's something that we'll want to do down the road, is more of a comprehensive community needs assessment. But I don't need a community needs assessment when I can watch the nightly news and see the things that are on the news and, you know, what are the issues facing our community. Drive through town and, you know, you see the homeless camps or the people.
So do you work with local governments or keep an ear out on what they're talking about? And those different organizations are saying we have these needs because of it. Now the campaign itself was just kicked off. People will be hearing about it through their places of employment, a lot of different ways to get the word out.
Yes. We just kicked off. The campaign will run through. We try to get most of the local, you know, and this is kind of another one of those shifts of United Way. People always expected the United Way campaign was September, October, November, and we were pretty much done. And we still strive with our local campaign to get that done, but we will run the campaign through February because we have so many national agencies, national companies that report to their corporate office, who then reports to United Way Worldwide, and then gets back to us.
Goes back around the company.
Yeah, and again, that's the greatest part about being part of that network. I always tell people, well, why are we a member of United Way World? If we were not a member of United Way Worldwide, we'd probably lose out on about $200,000 worth of contributions that go through national corporations back to us.
Great. Well, Duane, a lot of things happening, and I think providing the information for our viewers. If they have questions, you have a website.
We do have a website, unitedwaymocan.org, so www.unitedwaymokan.org. And they can also call we have an office in both Joplin and Pittsburgh. The number for our Joplin office is 417-624-0153. Number in the Pittsburgh office is 620-231-8140.
Great. Well, I'd like to thank you very much for being here today, providing information for us. And so
thank you.
This campaign gets underway.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I'd like to thank you, the viewers, for joining us this week on Newsmakers. I'm Judy Stiles. Hope you can join me again next week at the same time on this station. We'll see you then.